Okay.
Let's see.
Who's out there? There's Abby. Hello, everyone. I want to see the list of participants.
Click on the people
There we
icon
go.
down at the bottom.
I see Jeffrey, Jane,
Jim Chapman, Kevin, Ruth, Sunita. Thanks to everyone for joining us this morning or this afternoon, depending on where in the world you are.
and if you're on the West Coast, you're probably still kind of waking up a little bit. Thank you for coming.
Groggy-eyed, yeah.
Here, Jim, do a sound check. Jim Stice, give me a 1, 2, 3.
Check a 1, 2, 1, 2.
Beautiful. So I'd like to know where some people are. So I see Jeffrey. Jeffrey, where are you? If you wouldn't mind typing it in the chat. In fact, everybody, if you wouldn't mind typing in the chat, where in the world are you? See Jim Chapman. Where is Jim Chapman?
Jeffrey from California, so he's up early.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Linda from Minneapolis. Hayes from Maine. Kevin's Indiana. We all wish we were from Indiana.
Not all of us.
Linda, where? Oh, Linda, yeah, Linda Minneapolis.
Linda's from
Ruth is from
Minneapolis.
where? Let's see, Linda, Metro State. Who else is there?
Robert, we've got
Robert,
Robert. Sunita.
Janet
Janet from
from Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Sunita, where are you from?
Or Robert.
Robert could very well be in deep cover. Can't disclose his location.
Right.
Anita, Tennessee. Beautiful. By the way, Jim Stice, where are you right now?
I'm in Utah, Provo, Utah.
Janet from Virginia. Arabian from California. So Janet, my son lives in Virginia, Woodbridge, Virginia. If you drive by, just check on him. He just a couple days ago he tested positive for COVID for the 419th time, I think it was.
Oh, there you
Poor
go.
guy.
Janet says he teaches with her.
Oh well. So your burden is heavy.
That's right.
Join with me in helping to raise my son, please. So Janet and my son are both at George Mason University in Virginia. Jim, I'm going to share my screen now.
All right, do it.
We always know it takes a little time to get that to work.
Yeah, we could be here a while.
So tell me if you're seeing that.
I see it.
Beautiful. Can you see me coloring down in the right corner?
Yeah, you need to put it in presentation mode.
Yeah, I thought I had, although it doesn't look like it's. Let's try this.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I'll try this. I'll
Uh,
put it in presentation mode first, and then I'll share it if I can. Mm,
all right, let's get this show on the road,
Okay, let's get the
as they
slides up.
say.
Yeah, see the slides. Let's see if I can go into presentation mode. No, so let's do this. Close enough. So are you set? Jim, are you set?
Yeah. Do you want me to do it on mine?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
As long as I can go forward and back. Perfect. That looks great. Hey, good morning, all you accounting instructors out there. We're the best people in the world. And anytime we get together and talk about teaching our students, it's a good day. So, all of us, of course, have this continuing issue of attracting the interest of potential accounting majors. They're lured by the evil tricks of finance people and econ people and engineering and whatever. How do we get them to see that accounting is actually the best major in the world? So one way to do that is to have them do projects in class. So we'll be talking about projects that we have done in introductory accounting. We might slip in a couple of higher level ones, but primarily introductory accounting. So let's get going. But projects are good because they help students uh, apply things in a more realistic business environment. We're always talking about giving our students messy fact situations. Well, a project is as messy as it gets.
But
There's a
but
side
but
benefit.
but it's a controlled messy.
Controlled mess. That's exactly
That's right.
right. It's not an open-ended safari. It's a guided safari. That's
That's
exactly
right.
right.
Okay.
Helping students learn in group settings. We're always talking about telling our students that in the workplace they're going to be working in teams. Well, let's have them work in teams, and it also helps them see that, hey, this stuff is relevant. It applies in the real world. So Jim, you and I brainstormed this first one that I've got listed here. Remember E.D. Hubbards? He was our managerial accounting professor. He gave us a project. We had to create our own company. It had a couple of products and a couple of departments, and we had to invent the numbers and then at the end reconcile variable costing with absorption costing. Jim, you did this project. It's one of the
Yeah.
few things I remember from my master's of accounting program.
Well,
It go ahead.
not only that, I've got it right back here on the bookshelf.
Okay,
It's the
good.
only thing that's survived 40 years.
Yeah. I did a week-long project once with some MBA students. Don't worry, I thoroughly cleaned myself off afterwards, but I was a master's of accounting student and we did a market simulation and there was negotiation. It was really amazing. Jim, tell us about this high school accounting cycle practice set you did.
Yeah, when I was in senior in high school, they handed me a packet set. It was about an inch thick with simulated invoices, all done by hand. I had to track all of that, and my my teacher challenged me. When you get this done, you don't have to come to class anymore. So first time in my life, I stayed up all night and handed it in the next morning.
Yeah, we could talk a lot about your high school career, but that's a story for
Boy,
another day. So we remember these. I mean, we're old guys. That was 50 years ago. You did that high school practice set, and yet you still
that's
remember
right.
it. Well, here's some of the
I did.
projects we're going to describe. And by the way, the kind people at Stukent who've organized this for us have a Word document where each of these projects are in that Word document. You just cut and paste, and it's ready to go. So we'll do an Edgar search, computing Google's goodwill, your
In, in
field trip, your.
addition, in addition, these slides will be available as well.
Yeah, that's true. Financial statement analysis, going to your favorite restaurant, the handyman spreadsheet, value in a small business, and then the two in green. I don't even want to say anything. These are going to knock your socks off. So get ready to see these amazing projects that have been created by the awesome people at Stukent, and you'll get to see just a taste of them a little bit later. Let's start with Edgar Search. So I do this in the third week of my introductory financial accounting class. So they really are brand new, but what I want them to show is, hey, yeah, we've done company X in class and we've done company ABC in class. But if you want to look at Microsoft's financial statements or Apple's financial statements or Google's financial statements, they're out there. So I send them on an Edgar search, and you see there on the screen numbers 1 through 5. As Jim said it, we don't want them wandering off in the weeds, just poking around. I give them exact instructions on how to do this project. And I think that's an important thing, especially in introductory accounting. You don't want them to fail. You don't want them to try something, it doesn't work. So I give them exact instructions on how to do this Edgar search. In fact, I was reviewing this slide just 2 days ago, and I saw that the SEC, in their infinite wisdom, had restructured their landing page for Edgar. So I had to rewrite these instructions. And that's, as a side note, here's what I would suggest. If you ever have your students go out to the internet as part of a project, you better go through it the day before you send out the assignment, because you can't just roll forward from last year. The internet's a changing place, and something might have changed, as it did with this one. So they go through, I tell them exactly how to find the financial statements for Microsoft. Tell them exactly where they need to go to find total revenue, cost of revenue. You can see the 6 items there. And then the end result of this is they're going to compute some ratios. They compute debt ratio. And you say, what, third week of the class? Yeah, I give them a general explanation of debt ratio. It's pretty easy to explain the percentage of the money the company needed to buy their assets that they borrowed. And then ask them to do some simple interpretation, very simple. How do I grade this? Well, we'll talk about grading a little bit later. I'll give you a spoiler alert. Grading is not important on these things. It's kind of, did you do it or did you not do it in most cases? And in this case, students like this. They're actually out there. The desired learning outcomes, well, they get introductory accounting students in their third week of the course to see real income statements and balance sheets, and man, they feel good about themselves. Feedback from students on this one, never a negative word. And I think part of that is because I myself go through the process every semester to make sure that all the links are going to work, everything's going to work. I love this project. It's a very good one. Jim, any comment?
Nope, nope.
Good. Let's talk about this next one. I have to confess, I do this one late. I wouldn't do this the third week. I might do this the 10th or 11th week. There's one thing we talk about in financial accounting is, hey, we report assets primarily at historical cost. And intangible assets, intellectual property, are those kind of assets are not reported because you develop them yourself. They're not purchased. There is no historical cost. Well, to hammer that home, and I apologize, I didn't update these numbers. I used the numbers from early 2023. I give them exact instructions. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to find the value of these assets from the SEC website, same one. They already will know how to do that because they did that earlier in the semester. And I give them a website, and you can see it right here. It's called Interbrand. Yeah, it's an outfit in London that estimates values of international brands every single year. So that's interesting because you can see the change in value. I remember when I first started doing this, oh, must be 30 years ago. Google didn't exist then. The number one most valuable brand in the world was Marlboro cigarettes. That's gone down the ranking just a little bit. And now Apple, as you might guess, has the most valuable brand in the world. Go out there and get a value of this intangible asset, Google's brand name. You can get the current value or market capitalization of Alphabet, the parent company of Google. And I tell them how to do it. Go to this website. And as I said, you got to check this. I mean, finance.yahoo.com is pretty stable. It always stays there, but just Do it yourself before you send your students off to find these things. Go to the Interbrand website. Don't trust the Stice brothers with these URLs. You go out and check them yourselves. And then they do this. They estimate the current value of Apple's homegrown goodwill. In other words, if you and I were to pool our money together and buy Alphabet, the parent company of Google, how much would we have to pay extra for their goodwill? I give them a list of assumptions there. Assume that the recorded values of the long-term assets are approximately equal to their fair values. We could loosen that assumption up. So there's some instruction. And here's the solution. This one is as of the end of 2022. Reported assets had reported historical costs of 365 billion. The unreported value of Google's brand name, which we can get separately from that Interbrand website, 252 billion. I got their market capitalization, which at that time was about a trillion. I checked yesterday, it's 2 trillion now. So they've had a good couple of years. You can just do a simple balance sheet equation. And at the end, you find out that the estimated value of Google's own goodwill at that time was about $500 billion. These days, it would be closer to $1.5 trillion. That's a simple computation if I lead my students step by step and tell them, find this number, make this assumption. Now, the way you could take your class off the track is to just say, hey, go out and estimate the value of Google's goodwill. Off you go. Well, they're confused and frustrated, and you're going to get lots of office visits, and you're going to get flamed on TikTok. And I'm not. The nice thing about students flaming me on TikTok is I wouldn't know it, but still, you can get flamed out there. Give them precise instructions, and I think that's a general point. If you have students do a project, make sure you thought through every single step of the project. Simple things. I remember once I had a project due Saturday night of the fall semester, a certain Saturday night. And then I was thinking a week or so in advance, I thought, wait, Saturday, that's the big football game, the big rivalry. Well, you can't have an assignment due right in the middle of the big football game. So you got to think through everything, every single step. So with this Google's goodwill, demonstrate that reported GAAP cost numbers and fair values of companies are quite different in some cases, especially companies with a lot of intellectual property. The students are very pleased that they could compute such an interesting number without much difficulty. And if I were to do it differently, I'm talking to myself here, maybe do a little sensitivity analysis. What if the recorded property, plant, and equipment was worth twice as much uh, than compared to its recorded historical depreciated historical cost? What would that do to Google's goodwill? And you see, it wouldn't make much difference, but it's nice to do sensitivity analysis.
Okay, okay,
This,
let me insert this comment because the
please.
question is always, how do you grade this? And you got to keep in mind, you're going to get your grade distribution on exams. This is almost a did it or didn't. And some students will do it and say, okay, I checked that box. And some students will do it and say, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know I could do that. That's what we're trying to do, is to capture those students and help them realize accounting is interesting and there's a lot of application out there. The grading part of this, it's almost a did you do it or didn't. You can do uh, online quizzes where you can ask them certain questions about this, but I wouldn't get too caught up in the grading because you're not going to get a big distribution on this. Your grade distribution is going to come through your exams.
That's a very good point. This is it's like children. I have 7 children, and sometimes one of my daughters criticizes me. You shouldn't have favorites. You shouldn't rank. Okay, so I shouldn't. But if I were ranking projects, which I should, I'd rank this as my favorite. This is for a managerial accounting course. After they've studied job order costing and they know about direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead, I say, okay, do this. Go to your favorite restaurant and get your favorite meal. And while you're there, take notes on the production cost. And they know about production costs. They can look at the direct materials. Here they come out on the plate. They know about the direct labor. They can see the servers. They can imagine in their minds the cooks, the chefs in the back room. They could see the cashiers. The hard part, of course, with all of these things is, okay, what about the rent? What about the cost of the electricity? Eh, But I asked them to think about that. And at the end, they write me a little report about their favorite restaurant and what meal they've got, and then what's the cost of the meal and what was the cost as a percentage of the price that you paid. And of course, these days you'd have to add in the 47% tip that seems to be added to every restaurant meal out there. So and I tell them exactly what to do. You see here, what did the food materials cost? I prompt them. Again, the idea is, if you're going to have students do a messy project, help them see in advance. You think in advance through the process that they're going to have to go through, and help them along a little bit. So some prompts on what would the food materials cost, the direct labor, the amount of the restaurant overhead. And I tell them at the end, of course, you're not going to get an exact answer. And you know this as well as Jim and I do. Accounting students don't like being thrown out in a situation where they're gonna have to make estimates and use judgment, but that's the real world. So I tell them, hey, okay, I know you're gonna have to make estimates. Make the estimates. It's a good exercise, especially for accounting students or potential accounting students, to see that estimates are part of the world. Not everything is exactly right down the line, black and white. There's a lot of gray out there. Uh, this helps students see the necessity of making estimates, puts them in a real environment of their choosing. This is their favorite homework assignment of the course, and it works pretty well. I've been doing this for quite a long time. Just another project, and this one brings job order costing alive. Students really like this, and I remember during COVID, I had to adjust this a little bit because none of us were allowed to leave our houses, so they had to kind of do a little bit more imagination on this one, but it doesn't hurt to use your imagination.
And
Uh,
they get to have a meal and call it homework.
yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. What are you doing? I'm doing my homework. Okay, that's great.
Right.
Of this one, I think this one is always a hit. Financial statement and analysis. This is the way Jim and I have done this one a number of times in a course that we team taught, Introduction to Financial Accounting. And near the end of the semester, they've learned about all these assets, liabilities, balance sheets, income statements, statements of cash flows. They've learned a few financial ratios. Okay, go. You find a company. I remember, Jim, we would often do this one in a nighttime class that we taught. So there are lots of working people. So go out and find the financial statements for a company of your choosing. We'd again remind them how to go to Edgar. Some of them would get numbers for their own companies. That was always kind of interesting to get a peek inside some companies, and give us a written executive summary, no more than 2 pages, and then give us a 7-minute presentation. We had the class divided up into groups. Uh, Jim and I are big on, let's get in and get out. 2 pages. If you can't tell us it to us in 2 pages, you haven't thought through it enough. You haven't got to the simplicity that's beyond the complexity. And then summarize it for us in 7 minutes. And then we tell them exactly how we're going to evaluate this one. We would take the grading on this one a little bit more seriously, and we would tell them in advance, here's what we want you to do. Uh, exactly. And here's how we're going to grade you on it. This gives the students a little real world practice in finding financial statements and ratios, the ones used in class. It orchestrates a fun end of course event. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it truly is the social event of the season. People come in. It's great. Again, I'm going back to COVID. Some of you also have these COVID flashbacks from time to time. I did this at the end of a course where for the entire semester we were not allowed to meet in person. But by the end of the semester, the rules had loosened up a little bit. So with proper distancing, we were able to orchestrate this event, and it was for most of the students, it was the first time they had met their group members in
Uh,
person. They'd never seen them in person before in their lives. So it was really kind of a great event. I'm always tempted to make this more elaborate, but this simple assignment, go find some financial statements, compute these ratios, find a couple of interesting things, write a short paper, give a short presentation. That just works. It's amazing. And it again gives students a chance to work in groups, and it gives them a chance to see that the sterile stuff that they're learning in the classroom actually can be applied in the real world. Jim, let's skip over this handyman thing. This is maybe too awesome to discuss this early in the morning, but it's in the materials that Stu Ken is going to send out, and in the slides you can see a description. I'll bet we've been doing this one, Jim, for 30 years, and it
yeah,
never
and if I
fails
had
to satisfy.
if I had a favorite project, it would be this one.
This one right here, and on this this Excel spreadsheet that we've made that goes along with this, and if you'd be interested, we'll send it to you. Just ask Stukent to forward your request. I've got English, Chinese, and Russian here, so you can do a little language class as well.
That's right.
Jim, if you'll let me talk about this one more, this small business valuation.
Okay,
This one, I confess, I don't use this in introductory accounting. This one I do in intermediate accounting course after they've had not only financial and managerial, but they've also had a finance course in the business school. This one brings together all of that, their accounting knowledge, their finance knowledge, a little bit of their economics intuition. I tell them this: you choose a small local business, and they always choose a restaurant of some sort. You go, don't pester the owner of the business, don't pester the employees. Passively, you observe the business and make estimates of their revenues, their cost, look around and see what assets they've got. And at the end, I want you to tell me, what would you pay to buy that small business? Now, I've got uh, pro- I would say hundreds, but over 100 of these projects that I've got. And my wife gets tired of hearing me say this. We'll drive by a small business in our local town here, and I'll say, "Oh, you see that Rockwell's ice cream over there? Well, my students estimated the value of that business to be whatever, $57 million." So I give them exact instructions. Choose any small business. Uh, you're going to buy this thing. Here's a list of some of the ones. This one, Nelson Family Mortuary, Jim. Uh, as a person gets a little older, they get a little sensitive when there's talk of mortuaries. So I drove by this one the other day, and I said, I don't want to go there, but I know how much you're worth because my
uh,
students estimated the value. And here's what they do. They use a multiples approach, PE ratio, price to sales ratio, price to EBITDA ratio that I've given them some instruction on in class. They use discounted cash flow analysis, which is very interesting exercise that lets them apply in a real setting this thing they learned in their finance course and a little bit in their managerial accounting course. Tough thing they realize quickly is what's the right discount rate? What comparable companies should you use? And this assignment is always here's one report: Crumble Cookies, which is spread throughout the world, I think. A student group estimated this thing, which was created in Logan, Utah, of all places, to be worth $11 billion. I thought their price was a little high, but $11 billion. Here's some of their analysis. They gave me a best case, a worst case, all kinds of things. One thing that I always push back, and for those of you who've done these discounted cash flow models, you know that a key element of the value of business is the terminal value. What's it going to be worth 5 or 10 years from now? Out in the infinite eternity, and it's a discounted value of a perpetuity or estimated selling price at that point. Students, Jim, you've seen these places that sell cookies and carbonated drinks, Swig, Sodalicious. You've seen those. They've
yeah,
cropped up in in our area. Students estimated that, and they made the assumption that it was going to last for an infinite amount of time. And most of the value, the amount of the value of the business was in this infinite unknown period, more than 5 years from now. So I remember when they gave their presentation, I said, so you're saying that that business that sells carbonated soda and cookies is going to be around 20, 30, 40, 100 years from now? No. So I asked them, at the price that you estimated, would you be a buyer or a seller? They would definitely be a seller, get their money and get out when the getting was good. Get the students out into the community. What they do is they have to estimate sales. So they go they go to a donut shop and they sit there at a table and they have shifts. They sit there for a couple hours and just observe how many people come in and what do they order. They realize that valuation is hard. Getting discount rates is hard. Gathering the data is hard. They really love this group assignment. And unfortunately, it makes them think that I'm some kind of valuation guru. I've got several emails from students at the end of the semester, after the semester's over. Hey, I've got my little landscaping business and I'm thinking of selling it. How, what is the thing worth? Well, the easy answer to that question is it's probably worth zero, but they think I know these things. So they ask me for my advice. It's perfect. I've used this for undergraduate students, intermediate accounting level, and for graduate students. An
All right,
accounting
Chief,
cycle practice set. Go ahead.
skip this one and go to project grading. We'll include this in the notes.
Okay, good. Project grading. So, as Jim said a little bit ago, I don't depend on project scores to inject variation of the student grades. Frankly, I'm not confident enough in my ability to estimate, to evaluate the value of this student presentation versus that one, this student paper versus that one. I can get the very best and the very worst, but it's tough to grade that as well as I can an exam, for example. However, I do believe that it's important to give them feedback. So on this, the one that I was just talking about, the small business valuation, they send those in. I read them very carefully and I give them detailed feedback. I don't separate the grades based on that. I give almost everybody a pretty good score, but I do give them detailed feedback just so they'll know that I'm acknowledging their hard work. They did a lot of hard work, so I'm going to put in some time. And at the end of every semester, I just put myself in a room and say, you're going to spend the day grading these projects. It's part of the overhead associated with the project, but I think it's worth it to give them some detailed feedback. And as I mentioned before, I give them a grading rubric in advance, and you can see this on the slides that we'll be sending out. So, Jim, you tell us about some amazing hands-on projects.
All right, hand me the screen.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay, I want to share with you. This is a Stukent product. They came to Kay and I and said, what would be an ideal project for introductory accounting students? Now that's pretty cool because we'd always thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool if someday they could use technology to create a simulated practice set. Stukent calls them Simternships, which is quite clever. It's just a simulated internship. So we got the opportunity to do what you would love to do, which is to start with a blank slate and say, okay, how would we do a practice set for introductory accounting students? So we've
Like the one you
helped
did back as a high school student 50
accept,
years ago.
yeah, accept a lot more interesting and a lot more feedback as I went along. So what we've got here is this is the first simulation we did. It's just the accounting cycle. We just go through, in this case, 11 rounds. They start a business, they buy inventory, they provide services, they do adjusting entries, we do adjusting entries. The point of this practice set is to give students practice, hence the name, practice at doing adjusting entries and journal entries. They just do, I think in this case, we've got 74 journal entries they're going to do, and they're going to get immediate feedback with every journal entry that they do. Here's an example of a typical round. We won't play the video, but you can see here, they click on this video and their business partner tells them, okay, welcome aboard. Here's what we're going to do this round. They tell them specifically, this is what I'd like you to do this round. There'll be questions from your peers. You'll run a sales report and you'll do journal entries. This is round 3, just getting the business started.
What is the
They have it.
business, by the way?
Oh, the
Tell us what it
business
is.
is we decided to, for the summer, have a business in Hawaii. We're going to be on the beach, which every student would love to do, and we're going to rent surfboards and wakeboards, and we're going to sell sunglasses and suntan lotion. So it's a simple business, but it's an interesting business. And what you see on the screen here, here's their inbox. It simulates their inbox, and they get all these emails from various uh, vendors or from their business partner, or a sales report will be generated. And you'll see here, here's from the business partner. Here's what you have to do. You're going to generate a sales report. Then you need to go out and do 7 journal entries. So again, it's the controlled safari. We tell them exactly what they need to do. Here's the respond to peers. They'll get questions that will test do they know simple accounting concepts. So a colleague will ask a question and they'll choose from the options. Here's the sales report. It goes through and tells them. They generate this, they press a button, it generates a sales report, it appears in their inbox, tells them, here's your total revenue. So that they know, okay, I'm going to use that to make a journal entry. When it comes to journal entries, oh, by the way, I should add this. Well, let me finish this. They're going to make a journal entry. Debit cost of goods sold, credit inventory. You'll notice right here, this always bothers accounting instructors, doesn't bother students. We like to indent credits, but real world accounting software doesn't indent credits on the account. It puts the credits in a different column than the debits. And I had to get used to that because I'm used to indenting credits, but it turns out real world software doesn't do that. So we wanted to simulate real world. We didn't do that here. So they make these journal entries, they get immediate feedback. And
So what if they do it wrong, Jim? What happens if they do
if
that
they do
journal
it
entry
wrong, it
wrong?
tells them, okay, you did it wrong. And here's a hint. It'll say, okay, you've got 2 debits, you didn't have a credit. So you get to try again. You get to try 3 times. After 3 times, if you don't get it right, we give you the right answer. And the interesting is we give you feedback as well. You'll see here on the right-hand side here, we just walk them through. This is why we have this journal entry. And this is what we would say in class. We just wrote down what we would say if we were talking to students face to face to explain what this journal entry means.
Go back for just a second, Jim. Let me address something that people always think about. Okay, if I have my students do this online simulated accounting business with journal entries, are they going to ask me a lot of questions? And here's the feedback that we've got from instructors who have used this. No, the the simulation itself is self-contained. This all the questions are answered for the students. This feedback right there at the end, it says, okay, this is why there's a debit here, this is why there's a credit here. All their questions are answered. And we had one instructor say it took care of itself. I didn't have any student questions because the simulation is designed well enough that all of their questions are resolved. And in my view, that's an instructor's dream. This thing is
Yeah,
awesome.
they get practice, 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 and you don't have to do anything because it's self-contained. They receive all the feedback immediately. Now, here's we just got a question. Are the simulations available outside the curriculum? Yes, you can. The simulations are standalone. They're available standalone. But let me tell you a question people always have is, what about cheating? What if one student does it and the others copy? We're very clever on this one. We have students make two decisions. One decision is, what's your location going to be? And there are three options. And one decision is, what's your logo going to be? And there are three options. And those options determine which numbers they get. So the numbers will be different for those six options. Is it six? Yeah, six.
Yeah, it's
There's six
six.
options.
2 times 3. Yeah.
So they have two options with three options in each. So there are six possible routes they can take this. So if I choose this location and this logo, I'll get a different set of numbers than my classmate who chose this logo and this set of numbers. So we didn't. Now you might say, well, we want infinite possibilities.
No, you
You
don't.
don't want students coming in saying, okay, I had a question on this, and you have no idea which of the infinite possibilities they had. So what we did was figure if there are six possible outcomes, that's enough to discourage cheating. In
And we have
addition,
a solutions manual for each one of those 6.
that's right. So you can ask students when they come in, what was your location? What was your logo? And then you know which one they got. In addition, if you want them to work in groups, you tell group A, I want you to choose this location and this logo. All the members of that group will get the same scenario. You tell group B, I want you to choose this location and this logo. All the students in that group will get the same scenario. So they can work together if you want. And if you don't want them to, then you can not specify what they choose. Anyway,
Jim,
so
go
that's
ahead and
just
tell
to
what the
discourage.
capstone of this is. What's the capstone of this particular simulation?
Yeah, at the end of this, we're going to have them evaluate how the company's doing through some very, very simple ratios like current ratio and debt ratio and profit margin, just basic. In the scenario, we tell them this is the ratio and this is what it means and this is how you compute it. But we want them to realize we don't do accounting for accounting's sake. We do accounting to produce financial statements so that we can evaluate performance, so that we can then determine should we expand our operation or not. Uh, there's just when they do adjusting entries, here's just another example of how they do it.
This journal entry hub, by the way, has been nominated for a Nobel Prize. So
That's right.
yeah, we'll keep you posted on that. It's amazing.
They, in their inbox, they get invoices. This is an invoice from an insurance company, so that they get this and they realize, oh, we made a payment, so they're going to debit prepaid insurance and credit cash there. So they have documentation that's embedded in the simulation. They make this propose this journal entry, they validate, and when they hit this to see if they got it right, when they got it right, it says, okay, save it and move on. They do this. At the end, after they've gone through 3 months, done 74 journal entries, now they're going to make financial statements. And in this case, how could we make that interesting? Well, we turn this into drag and drop. Turns out they go through the list of accounts and say, okay, which ones go under revenue? Which ones go under expenses? And when they drag it to the right column, it turns green. If they drag it to the wrong column, it turns red. So they get practice at deciding what goes on the balance sheet, what goes on the income statement, and then on the income statement, what goes in revenues and what goes in expenses. So this is
So
just a drag and drop exercise.
if they drag accumulated depreciation over expenses over to
It,
expenses, which is what many
a
students are going to
common
do,
mistake.
I think, don't we have it set up so they get a mild electric shock
Yeah,
that tells them, no, don't do that. That's not right.
that it turns red and they
It
have to
turns
do it
red. Yeah.
again. So they'll go retained earnings. Where does that go on the income statement? Well, they quickly learn it doesn't go on the income statement. Then they do the same thing for the balance sheet. They drag and drop. Where do these accounts go on the balance sheet? And they find out, well, some don't go on the balance sheet. The ones on the income statement don't go on the balance sheet. So they get practice, practice, practice. Then, as we said, we talk about our ratios and we tell them in their inbox, what's the current ratio? How do you calculate it? What's good and what's bad? What's a good current ratio? What's a bad current ratio? So we have them do current ratio, debt ratio, and return on equity, just simple ratios. This is not a ratio exercise. The point of this simulation, journal entries. Get good at journal entries. But we want them to realize, why are we doing journal entries? So we can find out about this business and do something. Do something with it. And if they need help, we've prepared, embedded in the simulation, we've got videos that walk them through, okay, how do I make an adjusting entry? So at any time they can say, I need some coaching on how to do this. So the point is, journal entries, journal entries, journal entries. What's your role in it? Well, you can get in it, or you can say to students, it's designed to be self-contained. So they're getting practice. It's interesting. And at the end of it, they get a certificate that says, hey, I did this. They can talk about this. They go to an interview for a bookkeeping job. They can say, I've done bookkeeping. I did it on a simulated internship. We've got another one. I just want to briefly talk about this one.
Jim, again,
Please.
emphasize this is a standalone thing. And I know we shouldn't be talking about filthy commercialism here, but let's say that you use the Warren textbook or whatever textbook you happen to be using. This goes with anything. So you can tell your students, you got your textbook, but I also, in a week 3 or 4 of the course, we're going to start with this simulation to hammer home the journal entries that you're learning about in your textbook. So it can be put on the side of any course with any textbook.
And the cool thing is, if Stukent had come to you and said, design one of these for me, you'd have done what we did. This is what we've wanted for decades. And now it's a practice set using technology where students get practice at making journal entries, making adjusting entries, and determining how that results in financial statements. So it's just a lot of practice. And people will say, well, I've got to have them do this on top of their regular study. I tell my students when they're doing this, all you're doing here is studying for the test, because I guarantee you exam one is going to have you show me that you know how to do journal entries and you know how to do adjusting entries. So this is just studying for the test in an interesting way. We've also done the same thing. We've got a financial statement analysis simulation. We give them financial statements, and then we have them compute some ratios, compare them across time and across companies at the same point in time. They do some DuPont framework analysis. And at the end of this, their objective is, how's my business doing? And the answer is, your business is doing well. Again, we have different scenarios, but in every scenario, the business is doing well. And at the end, they're gonna construct. They don't write it. They construct a report that goes to an investment banker. Again, they see we use financial statements to make decisions. This one, round one, just calculate these ratios, compare them to the past. How do they calculate the ratios? They download the financial statements, which are embedded in the simulation. They take the numbers, put them in these boxes. Turns out the arithmetic's the easy part. Knowing what numbers to put in there is the challenge. So they put the right numbers in the boxes. They put the wrong number in the box, it doesn't compute. So they get practice at calculating these journal entries. They populate these boxes. The DuPont framework fills in at the bottom, and they see how the company's doing. They
Jim,
then do some,
Jim,
please.
hold on just a second. Uh, we forgot to mention what the business setting is here. This one
Oh,
we
go ahead.
cast it as you are an intern. And for your summer internship, you have been asked to do some simple financial analysis of our company based on comparisons to industry averages and benchmarks for an investment banking firm. And periodically, you'll get counsel from the person who was the intern last year, who we've now hired. So it's a realistic business setting. You are the intern working for somebody who was the intern last year, who now works for the company full time.
And again, it's all self-contained. They'll do ratios, get the numbers, put them in the boxes, times interest earned. We have them do that. They get practice at that. Then they'll identify, okay, based on these ratios, what's our area of improvement? Well, and it's obvious what the area is so that they fill it in here. But the interesting thing that I like is
Mhm.
we get to have them say, who would be able to influence that number? These ratios just don't appear out of the sky. Somebody has has a lever that they can pull that influence these ratios. So we have them consider who might be able to affect this ratio, the days purchases and payables. Who would affect that? So they have options to choose from here. Then we'll compare it to industry standards. We also go out, as Kay said earlier in one of the earlier projects, we'll take them out to McDonald's or not McDonald's, Walmart and Target. Say, download these financial statements to get these ratios and compare this company with Walmart and Target. We tell them exactly how to get there, exactly what they need to do. Then again,
As last year's intern would do in counseling somebody. So
right.
that's the business setting.
And then at the end, they're preparing a report. They don't have to write the report. They'll select a table from a set of tables that illustrates how this business is doing. They'll select a graph from a set of graphs that illustrates how this business is doing, and then a report will be built that you can then submit to an investment banker with your recommendation as to should we expand or shouldn't we expand. So again, the interesting thing is it allows students to get their hands messy in a controlled, messy environment, and that they realize we use financial statements to make decisions about how a business is doing. So at the end of this, they identify what are areas for improvement. And they realize that we're going to use these financial statements to try and access funding outside of the company. So it's all about the first simulation is prepare financial statements. The second simulation, this one is now that we've prepared them, let's do some analysis. Let's compare with other companies in our industry. And then let's make a recommendation as to how to secure funding for this company. Just note this and then we'll end. We're also preparing a simulation for managerial accounting that it's going to be my favorite. It's a cookie business, and they're going to do product costing, and they're going to do activity-based costing, and they're going to make special decisions, and they're going to do cost volume profit analysis and a couple other things. That one's in process as we speak. But the point of these is to give your students real world experience in a controlled environment where you don't have to do all the effort. The technology takes care of it. All right.
Jim, just a quick comment of how this all came about. So Stukent has been making business simulations since I think 2013. Is it, Jim? A long
I
time.
think
They're
that's a
experts
long
in
time.
this marketing simulations, the supply chain simulations. They're awesome at it. They came to us a couple of years ago and said, "Okay, we don't know anything about accounting. If you're an accounting instructor, what kind of simulations would you want in that first accounting class?" And we said, well, first you'd want a realistic setting where students can practice journal entries, just like they do in a real business with computers and doing the journal entries. Boom, that's where the first simulation that Jim described came from. And they said, okay, how about another one? Well, for millions of years, accounting instructors have been giving students a project at the end of financial accounting, or sometimes at the end of their second class. Uh, do some financial statement analysis. I remember doing one when I was a student. Well, let's also put that in a realistic setting so that a student feels like they've actually done a real internship using these numbers, and hence the clever name that Stukent has come up with, a simternship, a simulated internship. Uh, eh, yeah, these are great. They, as Jim said, they made our dream come true. They came and said, as an instructor, what would you like to see? Bam, bam. In introductory financial accounting, we'd like to see these two things. That's what we've got.
Okay, summarize this and we'll turn it over to Stu Kent.
Projects, as you know, And as we've discussed, put students in a real business setting. They give them messy facts situations, but controlled messy. Gives them a chance to work in groups, and they get to see that the stuff they've learned in class is relevant. We've described some that we've used for many years, and Stukent will send a document out that has the detailed descriptions of all of those, and we're happy to answer any questions. But Jim has also described to you two of these projects that Stukent has actually converted into amazing online simulated internships, Simternships that can be used in any course, with any courseware, with any textbook. They can be put on the side. Uh, Man, if they send you out a link that you can click on a demo of the actual Simternships, click on that link. Your life will never be the same.
All right, we'll turn it back over to Stu Kent then, if we could.
Much, Jim and Kay. We did have a couple of questions come to the chat that you guys already answered. If there's any more, feel free to start putting those in. I'm just going to give a few announcements and give our presenters an opportunity to catch their breath before we move on to the next part of today's event, which is going to be a short, informative session on Stukent and the STICE's other accounting curriculum for financial, managerial, and survey of accounting. As promised, here is a copy of the projects mentioned in today's webinar and a copy of the presentation, which will all be linked together on a page that we'll send out to you later in an email. Just so you can go ahead and get those now. Those should be popping up on the right side of your screen. We also want to make you aware of some additional webinars we're hosting. Here are a few of our upcoming sessions. We actually have in about an hour an instructional design strategies and higher education, how ed tech and institutions can work together. And I was looking at the registrants for that the other day. We actually have quite a few accounting professors signed up for that one. We also have From Campus to Career, what sales employers are looking for. That one's featuring a speaker actually from LinkedIn. Super excited for that. And then we have an AI one, AI for the Future, equipping students for tomorrow's workforce. If you don't know if these apply to you, feel free to share the events page with any of your coworkers that might benefit from one of these. Be sure to click the link at the bottom of your screen to learn more and register for any of these upcoming events. If you enjoyed this event and are interested in speaking at future webinars, you can also take a moment and click on the link below now to apply to speak. All right, we had a couple of questions come in the chat. Yes, Shandy, I will be sending out an email afterwards with all of these documents and links as well. Jill, the Excel sheets, Jim and Kay, do you know which Excel sheets those are specifically?
Yeah, that's the handyman Excel sheet. If you can somehow get us Jill's email address, we'll send it to her. Absolutely. English, Chinese, and Russian. You get the whole thing,
right.
one package.
Awesome. All right, now we are ready to move on and discuss some of the other amazing course resources Jim and Kay have created for your classrooms. Jim Kay, I don't know if you want to take this over or if you want me to stay on screen.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, then I'll just ask you a couple of questions about these other materials that you've created and discuss it with the audience. So tell us briefly about why you decided to write your own course materials.
Jim, go ahead.
Well, we've been teaching accounting for a long time. And we found what works and what doesn't. And what we found that what works better is when we engage the students. So we tried to write a text that's lively and interesting. Everybody does that. But what we did that's kind of unique is, in addition to a chapter with 30 pages of text, we've got in that chapter an hour and a half of videos in short 3 to 5 minute increments. So students can read the text or they can watch the videos. The content, the coverage is the same, either one. Now, what we found is that some students like to read, some students like to watch. And we've designed our courseware to satisfy the needs of both of those. Students are not at a disadvantage either way they go. And some do both. Some eager beavers do both. But what we've done, and Kay does most of the videos, he walks students through exactly what he would say if he were in a classroom. So it's an in-class experience for students who learn better watching videos. This is not to replace an instructor. What it's to do is to cut down on students' questions. We can answer them on the spot. We anticipate, because we've had thousands of students come into our office in office hours, we anticipate what their questions are going to be, try to embed that in the text or answer that in the videos.
To go along with that, I mean, text, videos, it's great, but it all comes down to students need to practice this stuff. So we have made with financial accounting, and Jim, make sure that I don't exaggerate this, for the financial accounting courseware. That's what Stukent calls their online textbooks. Financial accounting courseware. We have 1,500 problems in their platform that students can use to practice. Many of those are in an algorithmic setting. So not all, let's say you've got an assignment for chapter 3, there'll be 15 questions, but each one of those 15 questions has 5 different iterations. So Jim, do the math for us real quickly. It's 15 to the 5th power or something like that. It's a lot. There are a
Big
lot of
number.
possibilities so that students can't students who have a difficult time copying off one another. They could do the same assignment more than once. It's a huge package of practice problems. What about those of you who want more traditional items where they have a question and they write down an answer and hand in homework, or they submit homework online? We've got a bunch of problems like that in addition to multiple choice questions. So I think that the package of student assignments, student questions, student machine graded online things is huge and impressive.
And let me just be specific. We have traditional end of chapter material, EOC, questions, practice exercises, problems, what we've been doing for decades. We have that. Students can do that. That's in the courseware. But in addition, technology allows us to give them machine graded homework that's the same across all students. We can also give them algorithmic homework, which is different from all students, and that's graded in the software. You don't have to do anything with that. So we've got so many possibilities when it comes to end of chapter material, because to learn accounting, as we all know, the key is practice, practice, practice. And so we've got thousands of options for them to practice with.
In addition, since we've taught accounting many, many times, we've written up our instructor notes. So for every class period in financial accounting, I think we've got 25 or 26 of them. In managerial accounting, another 25 or 26. Thinking of a class day and saying, for this class day, here's what we have done. We give an outline. We give 5 or 6 sections to talk about. We give real world exercises that you can do in small discussion groups in class. We give the solutions to those exercises. We have PowerPoint slides that go along with that. So really, my opinion, if you have a colleague who's just coming on and it's the first time they've ever taught financial accounting and managerial accounting, you connect them with this courseware that Stukent has, because teaching notes for every class period, PowerPoint slides for every class period, real world illustrations for every class period, with instructor notes and explanations from Jim and me. It's all there. They don't have to create anything new for at least their first semester or 2. They can just use our stuff.
Let me give you an example. When it comes to lesson plan, I'm just looking at chapter 2, which is an overview of the financial statements. We've got a lesson plan that's 18 pages long that students can go, or that instructors can go through and say, I'm going to use that, I'm going to use that, I'm going to use that. These are not one-page lesson plans. This one has detailed, here's what you would do, here's what you would assign. here are the PowerPoint slides that I would use. Here are the questions I would ask. Here are the in-class activities that I would do. Here are the answers to the questions I would ask. It's just 18 pages for just chapter 2. So there's a lot of resources to make it easy.
Jim, if I had had all of this when I was first starting out in my teaching career, I'd still have a full head of hair.
Yeah,
Because
me
this
too.
makes, yeah, both of us would, because this just, it makes it so that, okay, all that stuff is done. Now I can work on enhancing the discussion in class and doing some of my own thinking rather than kind of running around at the last minute, trying to just
What am I going to talk
plug
about?
links. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all there. It's all
yeah,
there.
that's right.
Uh, it's an amazing resource. Jim's been teaching accounting for 40 years. I've been teaching accounting for 40 years. Add that up, that's like 498 years combined. And we put all of that stuff into these lesson plans. I think that's an amazing resource.
Yeah. So anyway, back to you.
Yeah, well, you guys kind of beat me to the punch there. Your courseware, we call it a courseware for those not familiar at Stukent, because it's a lot more than just a digital textbook. It comes with lesson plans and lecture slides. And in the Stice's case, it comes with their work through and walkthrough videos, which I forgot how many hours calculated that are provided in the financial accounting one alone, but it's quite enough for your students, like they mentioned, to get those different learning objectives and their learning styles accommodated. So it's really great. And that's a resource, those videos that you have continued in the managerial and survey of accounting courseware, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
And let me tell you the objective of all of this is to make your life easier. It's to make it so that an instructor doesn't have to worry about what am I going to cover, what questions are students going to have. We try to anticipate all those so that you can focus on making the classroom experience exciting and rich. We want to take care of all the administrative stuff, give students plenty of resources to get to understand the material so that you can focus on making your time with them in class an awesome experience.
Amen.
Awesome. And now, Survey of Accounting, that is a course that's growing in popularity around the country, right? So tell us, where does this course and this courseware fit in the College of Business? Where do you guys see that excelling?
Survey of Accounting, for many of you are familiar with it. Survey of Accounting is a one semester accounting course. A student's going to have one semester of accounting. So the thinking is, let's not have them do a deep dive into financial accounting with some of the year's digits depreciation and all kinds of other things. And let's not have them do a deep dive into managerial accounting with process costing and everything. No, let's take the greatest hits of financial and managerial and make that a one semester course. So that's Survey of Accounting. So we've also created a piece of courseware in conjunction with Stukent that goes along with that. So journal entries, for example, that's what people always ask about. Rather than do journal entries, we do transaction analysis, where we use it focused on the balance sheet equation. Assets equal liabilities plus equity. There's still transaction analysis. That's an important part of understanding how accounting works and how transactions feed up into the financial statements, but we don't drag them through debits and credits, even though they would be better for it. We save that time by doing simple accounting equation based transaction analysis. So all of your friends, break even analysis, straight line depreciation,
The
transaction analysis,
basics.
the basics. Well, not the greatest hits, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
that's right.
It's all there in one semester. It's the perfect course for students who are only going to take one accounting class their whole life. They're non-business majors, or they're business majors that are going to do marketing or some non-accounting or finance topic. It's the perfect course for them, and we've got the perfect set of resources for that course. Survey of
What,
Accounting.
what we typically do, lacking a survey course, is we'll tell them, okay, go through financial accounting. Take one accounting course, go through financial accounting, and they walk out of that saying, it's exactly what I thought. I knew I didn't want to do accounting. What we've done is taken for non-financial types, they're the greatest hits of accounting. And they'll walk away saying, wow, I'm glad I had that. I'm glad I had that. It's not Ebenezer Scrooge type bookkeeping stuff. It's interesting.
Exactly. I'm really excited for survey accounting to see how that continues to grow at universities. We do have some customers that are using the financial statement analysis simulation in that course. So that is definitely a solution for those of you who are looking for some auto-graded or some new innovative tech in that course. You can try out that part of the simulation. Talking about simulations, we mentioned a little bit about the managerial sim. That is currently in the works. We're really excited to get that out to you guys next. But tell us a little bit about the managerial courseware. Is anything exciting about that we've not already hit in terms of the resources for students and instructors?
Well, Jim mentioned it's built around a cookie company that both makes cookies and also has retail stores to sell these cookies. So it allows us to do all the great managerial accounting topics: product costing, break-even analysis, budgeting, making special decisions. It's all there. The only technology problem that we're having with the Stukent people so far is we want to install a scratch and sniff feature so that students can smell the cookies as they're cooking. They're working on that. These people are great, the engineers at Stukent. So I think eventually they'll be able to crack that nut.
An odor will come out of the speakers.
That's
Wow,
right. That's right.
that'd be
That's right.
awesome.
Yeah, that's something maybe Jill can help us with her cookie business. All right. Well, that's about all of our time today. Thank you, everybody, for joining
Thanks,
us.
you guys.
We have some of those links down there at the bottom. If you want to check out some more of these materials, we're happy to set you up with a demo or your own free account where you can play through the Simternships and review the courseware yourself. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and
Thank you.
we'll see the recording soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.